Welcome to Market Movers. I'm Dave Hightower, joined by Dan Bosse. We have a couple reports stacked up here in front of us, the September 1st stocks in all positions, but we also have the October 10th report that a lot of traders will be watching simultaneously. So we're looking at a lot of cross currents here, Dan. Are we going to get any change in the numbers, or are we going to have to wait until later in the year?
Well, I think you'll get change in the numbers, obviously. The report coming out on the 30th of September, the stocks report, is going to give us the final winter wheat production and small grains report. That's the starting point. Then we'll see if U.S. corn stocks at 2.4, 2.5 billion bushels are the largest going back to the mid-1980s. We know we're going to have a record soybean stocks number, David. So when we look it all down, we're going to have big old crop stocks. The question is, do we cut the new crop? I think that's a debate yet. That only harvest data will lead us in that direction.
And on the soybean market, psychologically, we put in a tremendous amount of negative news. And psychologically, if we go back below $1 billion, do you think that creates some attention?
Well, I think on new crop, they're expecting us to go down to 650 or 750 million bushels. So it's supportive. Can I get up to maybe 925 or somewhere in that vicinity? Yeah, but I think getting above that's going to take something from a weather perspective down in Latin America.
So we've looked at the supply, but we also have the crush numbers. We're starting to see new crush plants opened up. So we got a lot of negative demand in there, but you know, there's some signs of life.
Well, yeah, the corn exports are going to be the biggest demand drag as we look at it, but there are new crush facilities. We do see crush margins at about $1 a bushel, so that should be helpful for at least providing some underpinnings to the bean market.
And I know these things can change, but we've got a lot of negative outside market forces, the trade and the Middle East tensions, a lot of problems with that. So if we get too much supply, that's kind of a double negative.
Well, it is, but I think as we think forward, it's still going to be Mother Nature, both in terms of will we get this crop off this fall? In other words, is it cold and wet, and can we beat the snows? Or are we going to get planted down in Latin America, both Brazil and Argentina? Those seem to be the driving fundamentals as I see it right today.
And the weather remains a little bearish. So before we dive into our trade discussions, I'd like to point out that these trades are examples and not recommendations or advice. So Dan, lay it out for us.
Well, David, my example is I'm looking at shorting the Chicago wheat corn spread by selling 1 December Chicago wheat and buying 1 December corn future. Currently, that spread is trading about $1.14 wheat premium to corn. I'm looking at risking 7 cents in a trade with a target of 85 or 90 cents. This probably would come as we get into the middle of October.
So we're looking for the premium to shrink, trying to rely on a classic fundamental relationship. So Dan, as an example, I'm looking to buy a November 920 soybean call option, looking to pay 7 or 8 cents. I want to look for an objective of 24 cents, and I'm looking to risk that option on a price below 3 cents. Premiums are low right now. Take a look at if there's an adjustment on any kind of production.
And if we get a yield adjustment in the October report, David, that trade will perform nicely, assuming that soybean yields drop to, let's say, 45 or 46 bushels an acre.
And there's a lot of head scratching on what is actually out in the field. Well, Dan, on Market Movers, we like to educate new folks just tuning in, and this month's education topic is Harvest 2019 and late planted crops, and will they mature in time?
Well, David, I think we're going to be harvesting corn all the way to Christmas. I'm not going to say Thanksgiving, but I know Christmas is probably our target. This crop is slow in maturing. That June planted corn won't be ripe, or black layer as they call it, mature till we get into the middle of October. That tells me if we look at appropriate dry down, a lot of harvest won't start till the last of October, November. That means if I take it forward, this is going to be a December crop. Now, let's not use those 4-letter words called snow. That would be a big element for the corn and soybean market should it occur in December.
And it would be more significant if half of September hadn't been really nice and warm.
Oh my God, if we hadn't had that warmth in September, we really would be fighting this crop in terms of getting it to maturity. That was a godsend for the market.
Thanks, Dan, for joining us. Thanks for your insight. We'll keep a close eye on the market. I'm Dave Hightower, trade well and trade smart.